Okay, and we are live. This is Omnidog with his guest, a fangirl. Her name is Fariha. Please welcome Fariha to the show.
Hello,
Thank you, Fariha.
hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. And what have you been up to this Saturday? This is Omnidog's Vault, by the way, interview with a fangirl. And I'm Omnidog. This is Fariha, the fangirl. And what have you been up to today?
Nothing like as interesting as people might think that my life would be. I was actually at the dealer the whole day trying to get my car serviced up. Then I got slapped with like $1,000 bill for some tires. And as soon as I came home, I'm like, ooh, these Fantastic Four is not looking, relevant anymore. Should I sell them? Just go against the group and just put them up on eBay.
Right.
No.
Well, your collection looks nice right behind you. You've got some quality things.
Yes, don't I? Look at this. It's nothing as impressive as yours, but it's something. I'm proud of it.
Where is your JLA display?
So I have recently switched them up. So this is all my Marvel stuff, and all my Justice League stuff is right there, as you can see, right over there. So yeah, all the DC and Vertigo goes on that side, and all the Marvel and Image is right over here. And, some of my Dark Horse stuff is over there under the TV. So, it's like I'm trying to come up with some method to the madness, pretty much.
And I just saw the blue vase that's not long for this world. I'm certain it's going to be replaced by a bookshelf.
This is where I keep all the ashes of my enemies, by the way. So, it's kind of half full right now. Right now, it's kind of up to this full. So, yeah. Anyone who hates Batman Noel or like Sculptor, they will go over here.
I'm in big trouble.
Yeah, you kind of followed like both of those, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so yes. we have Kenny Crayley Jr. in there, Rob McClay. John P.'s going to go on a bike ride, which is insane. He lives in Cleveland.
How are you doing this in this weather?
Yeah, I think John P.'s crazy.
Come on, man.
And there's our buddy John Wilson that we had dinner with in Baltimore.
Right. John is he was really great. We got to hang out with him. He was the one who took the great picture of you with Mark Waid.
That's right.
Giving you the royalty.
Yes, exactly. The dollar bill.
Right. And by the way, folks, every picture that you see with me of some creator, Jess took those pictures. Almost all of them. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So he's my partner in crime whenever we go to the 2 Comic Cons that I've been to.
Right. That's right. I got the famous picture of you and Sean Murphy.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Love at first sight, guys. Love at first sight.
Now, is he your first comic book crush, or was there somebody before him?
I don't know. I mean, I would say. But, otherwise, I mostly respect people rather than having, full blown, I want to kidnap you and have you in my basement crush thing. So, yeah, I mean, so that would be it. But I do like Lee Bermejo as well. He's quite he's a pretty as you would call it, fetching.
Did you meet him at Baltimore?
Yes, I did, and I got him to sign the Joker book, and also got to talk with him a little bit. But he was pretty busy, so it wasn't one of those. But it's okay. We get to make eye contact. That's always first base. So that's covered. So in the next time when he comes to Baltimore, I will start, finding a way to, get to his heart, I guess I say.
Get to his heart? Okay.
Yes. By the way, I'll give you a warning to anyone who's listening. I'm going to be butchering English language, and I'm asking for forgiveness up front if I inadvertently curse. I have quite a bit of a potty mouth, but I'll try my best to keep things clean.
I'm sure you will. Yes, I've hung around you enough to know that, yes, Fariha does have a potty mouth.
Not that bad. Come on now. Let's.
No, you're not that bad. We actually have a question already.
Oh, okay.
This way, I have a question for you. How long have you been reading and collecting graphic novels? Because I got a little collection started, but it's mostly DC. So how long have you been reading and collecting?
So my first ever introduction to graphic novel was back in 1992, I guess. I was like merely a toddler of 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had the good, gave me Tintin in America. So I don't know how many people in the group knows about it, but it was actually dubbed, translated in Bangla. And at that time, I didn't know how to speak English until 2000, pretty much. And so someone gave it to me, and I started obsessively reading over it. And I actually have the English version of it that I kind of bought the whole box set later in my life. And the first book is like Tintin in America. So
cool.
That's where I first started. And looking back, this was not good because here they have red Indians who they call themselves Blackfeet. And the red Indian themselves call all the white people, I should say Native Americans, and they call the white people paleface.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's where I first started with graphic novel, but I guess later on, back around 2004, that's when I kind of picked up my first superhero-related one, The Dark Knight Returns. And that's the right one, right? The Rises is the one that you hate. Returns is the good one. So
Dark Knight Returns, it's Dark Knight Strikes Back that everybody dislikes.
Right. Oh, Dark Knight Rises is the movie. Yes. Okay.
Right.
So one of those Dark Knights, the good one, that's the one I first picked up after watching Batman Begins. And 2005, yeah, that's around that time. And since then, I've been kind of mostly sticking to the libraries. But back in 2015 or 14, something struck. And then I'm like, nope, I have all this money, so I should burn them. Why care about retirement or other things? So, and since 2015 till now, here we are with all these books. Yeah, 24% read, by the way. 24% read.
Oh, you know what I forgot to tell you to do? On the YouTube page, you need to mute it.
Okay. Yeah, 24% read, by the way.
Oh, maybe you already had it muted. Okay, yeah. What I forgot to tell you to do on the YouTube page, you need to mute it.
How about now?
Okay, I think it sounds fine now.
Okay. Apologies.
No, that's fine. I forgot to tell you. That's my job as the host.
Right. Why am I apologizing? Your fault, Jess. Your fault.
Of course. David Codd wants to know, Jess, I just want to know what Kirkman did to wrong you. I did a couple of videos today, as you saw, Faria, that I am not a big Robert Kirkman fan, except for Invincible, which I do like, but Outcast and Irredeemable Ant-Man were on there as books people should avoid. Not a big fan of Thief of Thieves, and I've never read Walking Dead, so I can't comment on it. But he did nothing to me except I think he wrote a boring book in Outcast. I think it was a boring book, so that's all he did to me.
I have Outcast. Now I'm kind of wondering, should I just give it away now that you actually just said no?
There were plenty of people in the chat today that not in the chat, but there were plenty of people in the Facebook group that stood up for Outcast, so you may like it. I mean, it could have been an interesting book, but I just don't think it. I don't think it pushed any new boundaries. It didn't bring anything interesting to the genre. I just thought it was boring, but maybe you'll like it. You already own it, so go ahead and read it and see what you think.
I read first compendium of Walking Dead, and from what I've seen over there, he seemed like pretty. It was very good. I mean, not good enough for me to wanting to read the next one. So I don't know what that tells you, but and as he was one of the guests in one of the podcasts that I listened to. How Did This Get Made? And he was pretty funny. So I haven't read Invincible yet. I'm just waiting for the last trade to come out, and I'm planning on kind of starting it at the beginning of March to kind of go through all like 20 to 100,000 trades that they have for that. So,
Right. Yeah, I do like Invincible. I've read the first 3, and I plan to continue to read through the end, because now that's an interesting book. I think I found that to be a much different take on the superhero genre than I expected. So yeah, I like that book a lot.
How would you compare that to Irredeemable?
They're both pretty. I guess they're. I think they're both different books. I get maybe the comparison that you've got a super bad guy in both, but I think they're not. They're kind of. It's kind of an apples and oranges thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can compare them.
Okay.
But of course, nothing compares to Irredeemable for me. And we have another question for you.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I ask Faria, this is from Rob, can I ask Faria how she feels in regards to the female representation of characters with comic books in current times?
I have a lot to say about that. So let me get on my soapbox now.
The stage is yours.
Sorry?
The stage is yours. Go right ahead.
Okay, so first of all, let's set the record straight. I read all of The Boys, so not just first issues, all of it.
I apologize. I thought you stopped in the middle of it.
No, but that's fine. And that was kind of like the worst thing that was ever done, like in terms of like women's representation. There was no redeeming quality for that. But in the other cases, like especially in kind of superhero books, and I think I mentioned it when I posted about my review, if you want to call it, for Green Lantern Omnibus, it was that I often kind of wonder, why is it all the ladies have their breasts hanging out? Like it's something that I always kind of wondered. Like it's why? Because they're all at work, and if I show up to work dressed like that, I think I would be sent to HR right away. Some comments. It's like, so does Shield doesn't have HR? Justice League does? I mean, it's something that kind of bothers me, and I think like the one thing that really kind of always irks me about that is like using that whole trope about women dying so that a male can go on to do great things. Like, it's like otherwise, like, what happened to Kyle Rayner's girlfriend? I keep forgetting her name, that she was shoved into a refrigerator.
Oh yeah, the refrigerator thing. Yeah.
So that's like, so to me, that's kind of, and like, always irks me in that thing. But among all of this, a breath of fresh air is, I'm going to say, Miss Marvel, Mockingbird. And then Spider-Gwen is, I think, like, it's also very good. I've read a couple of issues, so I can't talk much about it. So I think things are changing. And also, like, if you look at Faith, the character of Faith in the Valiant universe, so things are changing and it's progressing for the best. And also, like, with the Wonder Woman, the movie and everything. So I'm hopeful, but as it's, like, there's still a lot to go. There's still a lot of room for improvement, I would say.
That cracked me up when you said about Shield and Justice League having an HR department.
They're a war. Come on, I think that's the whole premise of, like, of statistics, or like even The Boys. Like, it's about who are, like, how are they being controlled, or who is, or even the powers. If nowadays, like, if they were real, they would have some kind of management, right? They would have to.
They'd have to have some kind of what?
They would have to have some kind of management or some kind of organizational structure. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I love the thought of Shield having an HR department.
This is me having too much free time and having too much to think about. I have a very long commute to go to work, okay? So I travel like 45 minutes each way. So yeah, these are the things that keeps me, entertained.
Wow, this is a pretty big deal to me. This won't mean anything to you, but unless you're a Rams fan, Jimmy Owens is friends with a wide receiver named Cooper Kupp. I will have to tell my wife and daughter that we're huge Cooper Kupp fans. So I digress from the more important topic of women in comics to talk about football for a second. That's cool, Jimmy Owens. Okay, so that is a very succinct and well stated thought. That especially, I still can't get over HR in a Shield for Shield. That is just cracking me up. But
I think mentioned in Superior Foes. If I may be completely wrong, but I think Boomerang kind of have a thought about it that like HR or something like that. But I don't know.
Yeah, Superior Foes was a good book. Did you enjoy that book?
I loved it. I loved it from start to finish. It was one of those things, like, it doesn't take itself seriously, and it's like it's just pure fun. Like, I think there are a lot of people who actually had says that, oh, it's not, it's too funny or whatever, but I think that's a movie I want to see. And it's everything. Like, it uses Marvel lore properly, and it talks about a lot of the things that we think about, like, like especially talk about uniform, or like, women being a villain. Like, that was one of the things that I'm forgetting her name, but she talks about that, she has to work double the work to get to become a villain. So yeah.
Let's see. Here's Superior Foes right here. What is the gal's name?
Beetle, right? One of the nerds can sort it out. You can ask.
One of the nerds?
Yeah, they will know.
One of you nerds tell us the gal's name in Superior. Let's see. That's because she's not the Beetle?
The Beetle, yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has like this whole arc about trying to be, become a superhero because super villain, because there's not a lot of, I think so. I think that's how the kind of it work.
Yeah, I need to reread this. I really enjoyed this when I read it. This is Nick Spencer? Yeah. Yes. I thought this was really good.
It was really good.
How was your first experience at a Comic-Con, the Awesome Con that I met you at, or had you been to Comic-Cons before?
No, it was Awesome Con. Before that, it kind of just didn't work out. I think I was supposed to go to a Salt Lake City Comic-Con, but because of some stuff, it didn't work out. So Awesome Con was my first ever con that I went to. And, it was actually very lovely. Like, not just to, having to meet you, that was like the best. And and also Tom King remembering me the next day when I went to get the book signed. So that was kind of, whoa. Tom King is my second crush, on my in my comic book things, and creator wise. And then actually having to see so many different kind of people showing up, because for some reason before I went there, I thought that it was like kind of like a fanboy affair. It's far from it, because when you go to Comic-Con, you have so many different people of different background, and it's just, and everyone's dressed up at so many different ways. One of the ones that I still remember, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Remember that?
Oh yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah, so there was like it was pure fun, like, and that's, even this year, like, maybe it's gonna be the same creator. I'm planning on going just for that people watching perspective.
Well, now you're a lot closer to Baltimore Con. You can go as many days as you want to Baltimore and not have to worry about a hotel or anything now.
Right. Yeah, last time I came to Baltimore, I kind of did two things at once. I got this apartment, and also went to Comic-Con. So yeah.
And of the two, Baltimore and Awesome Con, they were pretty different cons. Which one did you? I thought the cosplay was kind of more interesting at Awesome Con, if I recall correctly. That Friday that we met at Awesome Con, it seemed like there was a lot more cosplay going on. Are you a fan of cosplay?
I I myself will never do it because I'm not that kind of nerd. But but I am always fascinated to see other people like dressing up, putting their time and energy into it. And you're right, actually. Like Awesome Con did have more more interesting cosplay and stuff. But on Baltimore, the second day, we kind of went to the cosplay contest kind of thing. Some of those things were very involved. Some people really invested a lot of time and effort into them. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's always fun to kind of see them and then appreciate that. Some of the cosplays were one thing I always freak out about: little girls dressed up as Harley Quinns. That's a big to me.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, because I think I remember you and I saw this one little girl, like she was no older than 10, dressed up as the movie Harley Quinn, and her butt was all kind of out there. No bueno.
No bueno. You're right. I remember now that we were talking about sort of the sexualization of these costumes and how sort of numb people were to it just to dress up 10-year-olds like that. I do remember that moment now.
Right. The thing is, like, and when I went to Walmart the other day, and I bought like some Superman, Batman, like some dumb T-shirt. One thing is like there's Wonder Woman in ladies section, which is amazing. I'm so glad we live in that like this world now. But in the kids section, there was no Wonder Woman, but there were Harley Quinns and kids like junior section. And I don't know, like you can call me like call me whatever you want. But the thing is that these are the kind of things I kind of notice, and I'm like, like not so the balance is not right to me.
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised that there weren't more Wonder Woman things, considering how popular the movie was.
You would think, but somehow I guess little girls wants to be abused by clowns. I don't know. Like, what is it? Like no. Harley Quinn as a character itself, I think we discussed it before. Like she's a very complex and very interesting character.
Right.
And there's a lot of nuances. I used to be like, in my younger time, I used to always be like, oh my God, she's like, so like, she's like a sexualized thing. But as I started reading more and more, especially with the Amanda Conner run, she's actually a lot more nuances than people give her credit for. And so and that's one of the reasons the Suicide Squad movie was so terrible, because they just dumbed her down to like, oh my God, you guys, we're gonna kill some people. Like, like,
Yeah, they did grind her down to a one-note act, kind of. You're right.
Yeah, like, oh my God, guys. And at one point, she wears a jacket that says Joker's property. It's like, like, yeah. But oh well. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sorry to all the DC fanboys for ruining your movie for you.
No, you have a good point. I'm a DC fanboy, but I admit fully that you have a good point there.
But do you like Batman versus Superman?
The movie?
Uh-huh.
I only liked it when Wonder Woman showed up for like the last 15 minutes of the movie. Then I thought it was fun, but otherwise, I can't say I was a big fan of that movie.
Then you're not a true fan.
I know, I suck.
That's a rule. That's a rule. If you have to like Batman versus Superman, then
I suck totally.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I do like that movie. Eesh. Okay.
Let's see. Somebody asked earlier what my first con was. Believe it or not, when I was 17, which was 19. Let's see. No, it was I was in high school, so it was 1976. I went to San Diego Comic-Con, which was this dorky little tiny con full of nothing but comic books. There were no actors, no TV shows, no movies, no Hollywood people. It was strictly comic books and magazines like Eerie and Creepy and Mad Magazine. And I think it was just a little hall. that I went to. I stayed overnight with a friend because he and I both grew up in Northern California, so we drove down there because I had my driver's license. And of course, nowadays I would never go there because you can't even find anything about comics there. It's
And not to
all
mention, like, people don't know that, but Jess actually hates people. Like, he doesn't like, he hates them.
what in the mod chat the other day, he said it yesterday. I can't remember what it was about how did I even leave my house? Was it for AwesomeCon or Baltimore
No,
Con?
I think no, I think we were talking about that, how was your experience before internet came about? We were trying to tell, like, we were trying to figure out, like, how back in the Stone Age people talked about comics to each other.
Back in the 90s before the internet. Yeah, and I would go to these shows, these local little shows every month.
Right. And
Freya said, "How did you even leave your house since you hate people so much?"
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so do you by any chance have like the tickets or something from that time? Like from
The tickets. No, they weren't any special tickets. They were you just went in and gave them your money like any little show. Now you just get your hand stamped and stuff like that.
Oh my God. If you had the ticket now, that's probably gonna go for some money. People will wanna have that collector edition.
Yeah, they were just tiny little shows, and that's where you'd get your information. That and the Comic Buyer's Guide, which was a newspaper that came out weekly, and had tons of crappy little classified ads in it. It had real quote comic journalism in it too. But that's how you'd find out stuff. And I think I'm mistaken. I think it may have come out monthly. I can't remember now. It's been so long since it came out, but that and Wizard Magazine and your local comic book store are really how you got information. It's nowhere close to how it is now. How you could just go online and find out whatever you want. It was, back in the 90s and late 80s. If you didn't like something, nobody cared. There was nobody to complain to.
Yes,
nobody was listening.
Who cares? Yeah, who cares? Like,
it's the attitude we should adopt now. Like, so what, dude?
Yeah, so no, even if you see some of the reprinting of like the old Golden Age omnibuses and things like that, you'd see in the back they have all these fan letters, and they would actually give out your addresses. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's right.
And then apparently the whole point of it was, and because I kind of went into and looked into the interweb, so that if you liked someone's ideas and things, you can send them, letters, so you can become pen pals. Now we just kind of get onto a group and then start yelling at each other. So much easier. Yeah, we live in a simpler time. People say that we used to live in a simpler time. We live in a simpler time now. Now we can just say, no, you're wrong. I'm right.
Yeah, Forgerelli is saying CBG was weekly. That's what I remember. And Attack on Louis is saying Jess went to shows to try and meet girls. I will tell you that all the shows I went to, starting from San Diego in '76 through those little teeny shows through the late '90s, there were no girls at all. Zero girls. That's what I was so impressed with when I went to AwesomeCon the first year, which was, AwesomeCon, I think maybe 2012 or something, was how many women and families were involved now in all these shows. I don't know if it struck you as interesting or unique, but when you went to Baltimore and AwesomeCon, but there was, to me, it was remarkable how much participation there was from families and women, because it used to be strictly men only.
The what really blew me away, seeing a family, and I think I have the picture of them, who dressed up as Elena, Marco, and Hazel. And their baby was like Hazel. They had from Saga, and
right.
And it was like their baby was a little baby, and she had like little horns, and they put like a little wings behind her. I was like, I'm done. I don't need anything. This is it. We have arrived. forget about everything. Like that was like the cutest thing ever.
Didn't we see Prince TV head there too?
There was
Yeah, they were.
a TV head, and then some guy was like, "Ooh, what's up with that?" I'm like, read a comic every once in a while, why don't you? So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any other. Yeah, there was 0.0 women back then.
That's right. You know that back then you go to clubs, I think, to meet women, but now we ladies are everywhere. You don't have to. You don't have to look extra hard for us.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to get rid of somebody right there. You there?
Yeah, I'm still
Okay,
here.
I just had to get rid of somebody.
Who are you getting rid of?
Somebody that was writing inappropriate things.
Ooh. That's what yeah, YouTube is kind of like one of those.
That's it's the first one I ever had, so I actually didn't know what to do, so I just had to sort of figure it out. But yeah, I got rid of him. But I mean, he could come in under a different name, I guess. But yeah.
All those Russian.
Let's see. Best cosplay I ever saw was a guy dressed as Ron Swanson. That is awesome.
Okay, so I used to work for a company in 2004, and his name was Ron. I don't remember his last name. He was Ron Swanson in real life, but he was like how Ron Swanson is libertarian, or how do you say it? Like against government, or like privacy freak, and like hunting, and like survivalist and all that. He was that. It was kind of hard to see him. It's like and he was an engineer and a really great one. But some of the things that he would say, you were like, "What are you talking about?" So yeah, like you said that you saw a cosplay. I saw the real version. Not as adorable, I would say.
Let's see. Do you guys have any favorite female and male superheroes on both DC and Marvel side? If so, who are they? Well, Faria already mentioned Ms. Marvel for herself.
Miss Marvel. Let me tell you about something about Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is, to me, is what Spider-Man to a lot of boys. You know how Spider-Man, he's like down and out of luck, born in Brooklyn, and just trying to do something good. He lost his uncle, works for like an abusive boss at Daily Bugle. Like I think a lot of boys and men connects to that. Miss Marvel is that to me. Like everything that she goes through, especially like with her family, having like super religious, like that one person who's super religious, mom and dad who are like dad's kind of rolling his eyes, and mom always knowing what you are up to. It's like that's like my life. That's my life. So that, like, when I first read that, I was in tears. Like, I was like, oh my God, I never believed before that, oh yeah, representation matters and things like that. Like I didn't necessarily care about it, but after reading Miss Marvel, I'm like, yes, representation matters, because just having to see you portray as a superhero, oh, is this how you men feel all the time?
I take it for granted. That's how I feel.
Exactly, because the thing is, once I got out of Wonder Woman, I was like, this is it. Is this how you all feel all the time? Oh my God, now I know this. Now I know. So yeah, it will be Miss Marvel, Marvel-wise. But male superhero has to be, for Marvel, to me, it's Daredevil. There's something about him, like, because there's something about him I can't quite pinpoint yet. And my only exposure to Daredevil has been Bendis's run, and I think like halfway of the Frank Miller's run. But I always found him to be so, like, I think a compelling character. Like I don't know, he feels more grounded to reality somehow. Can't quite pinpoint. DC wise, has to be Batman. I mean, There is no other way about it. It's Batman. Batman was my first introduction to superheroes when I watched a DC animated show back when. And it has to be him. And for women, and I would be like, I'll be honest, I haven't read a lot of Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman is kind of like just based on the movies and whatever I read about her on her in different DC events and things like
that. For me, I would say obviously it's going to be Harley Quinn.
Is she a superhero though?
I think of her as an anti-hero right now. She's trying to do good in the current incarnation, which is how I love her. I didn't love her before that. But when she was in the Arkham Asylum games and when she was, the Joker's abused girlfriend and stuff, I really liked her more when Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner took her over. That's when I really started caring about her. And I would say for Marvel, I don't know much about her. I need to read more about her, and I will gladly accept any suggestions. But there's an X-Man named Magic. I really like her a lot. She's got these weird, interesting powers that I'd really like to read more about her. I think I have a Marvel Classic premiere that might have her in it. I can't turn quite all the way over there to get it, but I really like Magic. And that's and then of course Batman or Superman would be my main Marvel guy. Who can I just not wait? Well, gosh, I love Gwenpool too. Yeah, I don't think any guy sticks out to me as much as all the gals at Marvel that I like Gwenpool and Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman, Silk, like that, and all the female X-Men. I think they're more interesting.
For me, Captain America started to become a little bit of my favorite as well after I've been reading like a Brubaker run. And also obviously how awesome Captain America is in MCU. But I don't know, like some of the other than the Brubaker run and the Remenders run, Cap is not as interesting as I would hope for. So yeah, he's not. Yeah, he didn't quite get the cut of being the best.
Kenny Crayley is saying something shocking to me. My favorite female DC hero is a tie between Wonder Woman and Supergirl. I would have thought that it was Supergirl for sure. I'm shocked at that. Let's see. Forgerelli says, I'm always fascinated by how immigrants and foreigners get into such an American cultural thing like superhero comics. Most of the people I follow on YouTube are either immigrants or foreigners. Foreigners, that sounds like a funny term to me for some reason.
Oh, you mean like Blackfeet versus Paleface?
Yeah.
Well, I guess like as clearly an foreigner and an immigrant, I can tell you, like, I think a lot of the time that Americans take it for granted is that the American entertainment influence on rest of the world. Like, it's something that a lot of people take for granted. And especially Asia is like a huge market. That's one of the reasons, like a lot of the things that you would see that a Marvel or DC takes account for is the Asia market. It's huge. It has always been that way. And we were bombarded with superheroes mostly because of TV and movies. So once people kind of start getting into that, and then thanks to internet, people will start exploring it more. And then they kind of get into the whole comic things. So yeah, that's kind of where it comes from. And, I don't think I know anyone in Bangladesh who doesn't know Batman or Superman. So that's something even now, like, when I tell like, my people back home, like, oh, I'm into comics and stuff. Like, oh, okay. Can you explain to me how can Superman beat Batman? Like, so Superman and Batman is, everyone knows that. So, and thanks to the Marvel movies now, people are now all of a sudden the best Iron Man fan ever. So, but yeah, so it's something that people often take for granted, that how foreigners and immigrants can be so much into American culture and American things that are so American. And by the way, we love America. We do. That's one of the reasons we are here.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, things got a little political there. I
No,
apologize.
it's fine. They didn't get political at all. Let's see. Batgirl Nut still got to get my hands on the Bronze Age omnibus. Yes, Oracle 684. It is a great omnibus because it has the initial Batgirl run from the late 60s, which is the great Carmine Infantino artwork on it. And that is really clutch artwork on that. And then it runs into all the way up to Batman Family, which is when I actually started losing interest in comics. And when I was a teenager, when we got Superman Family and Batman Family, that's when I lost interest. That was probably around 76 or 77. And then, like you, it was Dark Knight Returns that brought me into comics again.
I think that's true for a lot of people, because Dark Knight Returns was it's so different, and it's so, like, it reads like a movie, and I think that's kind of got a lot of people back in.
Yeah, I was shocked, having grown up on Silver Age and Bronze Age books that really never, when you think about it, never really went anywhere, just how far Dark Knight Returns pushed the envelope and just brought brand new ideas, and it was just shocking how great it was to me. I mean, that was really shocking in a good way. I mean,
Yeah.
it showed me what comic books could be and what they should have been all that time.
Yeah, the fact that Bruce Wayne can grow old, or there's a limit to things, that things can come to an end. I think that idea itself is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So
Let's see. We have a couple questions. Superheroes are outsiders, and you often can identify with heroes. Okay, that's a good one.
good point. Very good point.
What's a good Batgirl run? I think that, in my humble opinion, I think New 52 Batgirl was good. I think the Stephanie Brown run was interesting. The Cassandra Cain run was interesting. But I think you can start at New 52 and you'd be fine. I found that run a good one to start with.
What about the Rebirth run?
I beg your pardon?
Rebirth?
Rebirth?
Yeah. Does that have a Batgirl run?
Yeah, it does. It has Batgirl and Birds of Prey, and I haven't read either of them yet, so I can't really say.
So can I ask you a question?
Please do.
Okay, so this is something that's been on my mind a lot. A lot of things are on my mind. So this is one of those things, is that, do you often feel like when you're reading a superhero stories, like, a superhero run, that it often feels incomplete, because back in your mind, none of it matters. There's no stakes. Everything will go back to zero and everyone will be fine all the time.
Oh, that's an interesting point. You mean like because even if they kill somebody, they're always going to bring them back?
Yeah, you can think about it that way. Or just like, what's the stake? That these, like, they will always be there, or Batman's parents will always be, spoiler alert, dead.
Spoiler alert.
I'm just saying, like, it's always, I mean, for example, like, I think it was Matt Higgins who recently posted on Facebook group, our Facebook group, and I think that kind of got me thinking, because he was saying that he was feeling a dread by reading Batman Rebirth, that Batman's happiness is not going to last. And
oh, right.
That's true. It's not gonna last. We all know it. It's like, that's the way the universe works. So so while I always read that, so I'm like, oh, okay, so what's the point? I mean, why should I care?
I'd never thought that way before, but now I guess I'm going to.
No, I totally
You've ruined comic books for me now.
Like, for example, like, compared to that, when I am reading like a contained run, let's say that Preacher, or now I'm reading Saga. I'm in like 7th trade right now, and to me it's like there are stakes. I'm really worried about these people. I'm really wondering what's gonna happen. But I was reading Green Lantern, where they're having all this proclamation that, oh my God, the world's gonna end. I'm like, no, it won't. No, it won't.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe that's why we get so much satisfaction by some of these smaller creator-owned stories, like you're saying, like Saga and things like that, where things have real consequences. That's a really good point.
Right. And the thing is, like, it's like, oh my God, like, what happened in Black Knight? I can't even remember. There was like 7 colors. Okay. But it's like, oh, the Coast City, it's gonna be destroyed. No, it won't. You just brought it back. And the thing is, like, the Bruce Wayne was dead in it. Spoiler alert, once again. But it's like, yeah, but we know that he's gonna come back. We know it. So I don't know. But the thing is, what Sherlock told me is like, just look at it as an adventure, I guess. Like, look at it as like an episode of a TV show. And oftentimes things go wrong, but then things just writes itself for the next episode. So if you think of it that way, but it's still, I feel like, steals some of the enjoyment of it.
Well, I think I agree with Sherlock. I think that we're lucky that there's such a wide range of interesting books out there. If it was just, superhero stuff where you knew it was never going to change, you get pretty bored with it. And I think that's where I was as a teenager when I got tired of it and stopped reading all through college and for a few years outside of college. And I think now that we have Image and IDW and Black Horse and Boom and whoever else that I may not be thinking of, we have such a variety now that it's not just superheroes, that it can be other things where there's real consequence that keeps it interesting.
Yeah, good point. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like, I have saw it even in myself. Like, I can't do like 2 superheroes back to back. I need to put, like, something else in the middle, like, so that I kind of take a break from them and then come back, or And I recently received like a great gift from one of the when I purchased some books from him, Death of Superman, and let me tell you, I have a feeling Superman dies in it. That's a recycled joke, by the way, because I think I made this joke in the group in one of the comments.
Well, it's still good for a laugh. You got me.
But I have a feeling. I looked at it. I'm like, oh, look, Death of Superman. And then the next book was like Return of Superman. I'm like, oh, I guess Superman comes back. Only in comics you can get away with this.
Yeah, exactly. Attack on Louis says, to me, is your love for Silver Age purely nostalgia, or are they good stories? Would you recommend it to someone who has only read modern stuff? I will be honest with you, Attack. I think it is nostalgia, and I don't know that I could recommend to somebody who's grown up on a diet of modern comics. I don't know that I would recommend some of it because it can be very clunky. It's got a lot of exposition, a lot of explaining, and it really pushes the sort of suspension of disbelief. A lot of those things, a lot of those stories generally don't make much sense when you look at them as an adult. They did as an 8-year-old, but now I look back at them and I'm just like, whoa, what is this about? And it's purely nostalgia. My love for like Silver Age Supergirl and Legion of Superheroes. It just it doesn't make much sense to look at them now. You can see the plot holes are big enough to drive a truck through and things like that. So I don't know that I could recommend random comics, but I love them. And I said in a video today that that's why I won't rip on Batman Nightfall or Spider-Man by McFarlane, even though I don't really care for those stories. People who grew up on them in the 90s look back fondly at those books like I look back fondly at the Silver Age. And books based on nostalgia, to me, are sort of untouchable because it's such a personal taste that I wouldn't begrudge somebody for liking Nightfall just because I love it. I mean, just because I didn't love it. The same way I love the Silver Age.
Freudian slip right there.
Yeah, Freudian slip. I actually love Nightfall. Yes. Nick Munoz would love to hear that.
So what's considered to be like pure, like Silver Age, like pure Silver Age? What era is that considered?
In my opinion, I believe it started with not rebirth, with the introduction of Silver Age Flash, which was, I think, around 1954, 55, 56, right in there. And then that's definitely the beginning when he was introduced. And then the birth of the Bronze Age, people seem to have different opinions. A lot of people think it's Green Lantern, Green Arrow 76, or Conan #1, both of which happened around 70 or 71. So it's kind of in there for the Silver Age.
So do you think that, my personal opinion, like it's one of those things that we can completely digress from this and then start talking about other things, but it's like people are getting more and more cynical. Do you think in this era, like, as we're becoming more cynical, superhero will continue to remain relevant unless you make them all edgy? If you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We went through a period back in the 90s where superheroes were really sort of grim and gritty and cynical, and it was interesting for a while, but then people got tired of it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I always feel like there'll be a place for escape when you want to just relax and get away from the real world. And superheroes can fill that need that you have for wanting to escape. And I think it helps that we have movies that are so good, mm-hmm. That have brought in a new audience. To my knowledge, I don't think that it translates into new customers in comic book stores, but it helps keep them popular and helps keep the spotlight on them, on superheroes, to make sure the stories continue to be good, to keep the current fans happy.
Yeah, like, to that point, like, I often think about that, what's Marvel gonna do? Because there's so many of their flagship characters, like Captain America or Magneto, is so involved in World War II, a real life event. How are you going to continue to change that? Or how are you going to make him relevant when people start moving on? Or I guess, like, when World War II is not a thing anymore. I mean, I don't know how to, like, I'm not.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Not disrespecting World
War. No, yeah, but eventually at some point, World War II is going to be as far away as World War I is to us.
Exactly. So, and the thing is, like, for example, like, they kept on changing Punisher. He went from Vietnam vet to, I think, Iraq at some point.
Right.
Or, because I think with those war, it's not one-sided. There's a lot of discussion, and people much more smarter than me have discussed that. But World War II was such a shock to human civilization. There was a clear right and clear wrong. So you could hold, but how is that going to translate later on? Like, I mean, I guess, like, Batman's parents, spoiler alert, can be killed at any time. But otherwise, like, it just, like, I don't know. It's, to me, one of those things that I kind of often think about.
Right. Actually, yeah, I think that's a really good point. That's a really interesting point.
I mean, I guess, like, they're going to keep Captain America's frozen for longer and longer, but what about Magneto? Like, how is he gonna be alive? You know,
Yeah.
that's unless you kind of do like plot holes that you can put a truck through. Hey, wait a second, Jess. Let me turn on some lights over here. It's getting quite dark.
Okay. Here's a comment. There's a guy I follow, I think he must be on YouTube, that learned American culture through comics. He said it was easier to follow than TV, which was too fast to understand. But you, how did you learn English again?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter?
Yes, I learned English through Harry Potter. It's God's honest truth.
What about the two? Didn't you watch 2 TV shows or 2 TV networks too to learn it?
Well, the thing is, I used to watch Cartoon Network, obsessively as a kid. However, I don't think I ever understood any of that. Like if you watch Flintstone and Jetson or Tom and Jerry, you don't need to kind of understand them. Or like, I think some of the words kind of, got in my head, but it was actually Harry Potter where I first truly learned to read and, speak English. Also, my sisters were sent to English medium school, so they were kind of speaking English, so having talk with them. So it kind of all fell in that time, but I think Harry Potter was like what truly taught me how to express myself in English. It's bizarre. It's completely subjective. Don't expect me to explain the science behind it, but that's what it was.
Well, I think that's cool. That's a really cool way to learn.
Yeah, and then after Harry Potter, I actually started reading Lord of the Rings, and kind of, like it was kind of more of a solidifying that, and then it kind of took off from there because I started reading more and more English and, speaking in English or like watching more English movies, not dubbed in Bangla. So, yeah.
Right. This is a good question for you. Greg asks, what makes comics appeal to you? What has kept you from bouncing off of them? So what keeps you what appeals to you and what keeps you attracted to them? Can you actually quantify that into words? I don't know that I could.
I mean, that's a very good question. I think like to me, it took me quite some time to kind of get into the headspace of reading comic books and stuff like that. But there is a lot of interesting stories that are told through comics, and I don't know how that will translate in a prose novel. You can, for example, like something like Alex and Ada. I can see that you have it behind you over there. It's such a the other way. it's such a simple and it's a very interesting story. I personally don't know if they would ever be able to do that in prose unless it's like a 500-page book. But within like 200 or whatever page it was, it explored everything, and then with the facial expression. And so I think that's kind of what kept me at it. But then I read something like The Boys, and I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? But
yeah,
but it's one of those things. It's kind of like, I guess it's with any kind of entertainment things. It's like, there are a lot of good books and got a lot of good stories out there that you can learn a lot of things from, like Day Tripper, for example, that keeps you at it. What about you?
I think exactly the same thing you said, is that I think that it's just more, I mean, I love books. I love art. I was a strong reader from the time I was a little kid. But something just appealed to me about putting the words with the art. And I think you can, especially nowadays, you can just do so many different interesting stories and things. They're really experimenting in a good way with comics, with different paneling and different storylines and stuff. It's just, I think it's hard to quantify something subjective as liking a comic book. It's like, why do you like running marathons, or why do you like this particular painting or something? You know, it just appeals to the person. It's so subjective.
Exactly.
It's hard for me to say. I will say now that I'm, you know, since I've been in it, it's the good stories that keep me in it. The more interesting stories. I'm reading something now called Wayward that's really good. I need to finish that up and do a review on it because I want more people to get into it.
Who is it by?
It's by Jim Zub. It is about a girl that's half Irish, half Japanese that moves to Japan, and she discovers some powers that manifest themselves there, and it has a lot to do with ancient Japanese folklore. And there's a whole huge thing at the back of each book. There's 2 books that I have so far that talk about Japanese folklore. She meets like-minded teenage kids, and so far I'm not sure who I know who the enemy is, but I'm not sure what the enemy is made up of and what their goal is just yet. But they all have different powers, and they're all freaking out about, you know, all of a sudden their powers are manifesting themselves as they come into their teenage years. And so it's very well written and very well, it's not so Japanese that you can't, you know, that you can't get into it, but it's got just enough Japanese culture in it to make it feel very authentic. So I really like it. And the artwork is really clean and crisp and cool.
I think he's going to be in Awesome Con this year.
Oh, is he?
Jim.
I would take those books to be signed by him.
Yeah, I think
Jim Zub.
Yeah, either in Awesome Con or in Baltimore Comic Con, because that name sounds very familiar. But if you like Japanese folklore-related story, I think Ronin by Frank Miller or Alan Moore. I'm always confusing the 2 of them.
Oh, that's Frank Miller.
Frank Miller. That's a very good story, actually.
Right. Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah, like Frank Miller I think at some point he lost his marble, but he at one point he used to be a very good writer.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, there was a time when he churned out a bunch of great stuff.
Right.
Let's see. Rebirth, Batman, Superman, and Flash are bringing back a Silver Age sense of hope in a lot of ways. That's from the Clarknado. I agree with that.
I think we need a lot of hope nowadays. So
yeah, sure. Jordan Fanatic, who I believe is a youngster, yo guy, I have $130. What are good omnibus for newbies? Oh boy. You know, 130 bucks. First of all, you got to start at in stock trade so you can get everything for 40% off and stretch your money out. I might say instead of omnibus books, I would say get some of the Rebirth hardcovers. Those are really good reads. I find them to be some of the really good Rebirth books. The deluxe books are excellent, like Superman and Batman and Detective, Wonder Woman, Flash, some of those things. I'd probably do that. Or you could take some money and go on Comixology and sample some books that have omnibuses of them, like Punisher or Spider-Man, and see what books appeal to you. That would be my advice.
If you are into like specific characters, like let's say that you like Green Lantern, then I would definitely say Jeff Jones, first volume 1. If you like police procedural, Gotham Central omnibus.
Very good.
And if you want something that is kind of completely takes, like, you know, it has a commentary about superhero genre and things like that, X Statistics is a good one. I don't know if you, I think I saw it somewhere behind you at one point.
Statics?
Yeah, X Statistics.
I think it's over there.
Right.
My Xbook's down over there.
That's a good one. That's like boys done right. You know,
okay.
or not as in your face kind of thing. But yeah, that's a good one.
Those are good suggestions.
Yeah, I'm looking around. I'm trying to see. Ooh, Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. Those are, to me, that's the best Marvel event ever.
I agree. Planet Hulk is awesome.
Right. So those two, like, I think, like, I remember the story. I mean, I'm known to forget things, but that's one story I remember. I may not remember every tiny details, but I know from beginning to end what happens. Maybe because they kept on telling it again and again. But that's a good one.
And if you're a Star Wars fan at all, the new Star Wars books are good, especially Darth Vader. That's an omnibus you could get if you're into Star Wars. That's one of the best books I read last year was Darth Vader. And let's see, anything good? It's the indie comics that bring new stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, Planetary. That's good.
Oh yes, Planetary. That's the best. However, in order to read Planetary, I would say that you need some more, like, you need to know about superhero world, especially DC and Marvel, a little bit. Like, that's one of the things that a lot of people, like, like, a lot of people is like, oh, I'm all Marvel or I'm all DC. I think you miss out on a lot of good things if you do that, because Planetary is a good example where Warren Ellis actually end up using lords from both universe in a way,
right,
and kind of spun it in his head and presented a very one of the, a really excellent story.
Yeah, you're right. It is great, but it does need some background, just more experience in reading. You're right.
Right. It does need a little bit of that. And the thing is, like, I remember meeting someone, and I think it was one of the Comic Cons or someone, like, they were flabbergasted when I told them, that the villain is Fantastic Four. Like, the villain of Planetary is an allegory of Fantastic Four. Like, they're like, I did not think about that. I'm like, how did you not think about that? But yeah, so it's like, you have to kind of know a little bit more.
Right. Now, have you read any other European comics besides Tintin? Did you ever read anything like Asterix?
No, I have not, but I did got myself the Incal.
Oh, right. The Incal, yeah.
So I think I got a really good, a good deal. And I got the Incal, but, unfortunately, I haven't read that yet. So it's something that's on my agenda. The other one is like a Snowpiercer, because there's a comic book for that, because it's actually originally started as a graphic novel. And that's something that the movie really freaked me out, but I really want to read the graphic novel for that.
Yeah, I'd like to read that too. I don't own that, and I haven't seen the movie, but I know I want to read it and see the movie.
Oh, the movie will freak you out. I can tell
good.
you. It's a freaky movie, like, because especially, like, it's a lot of social commentary, so that kind of can get a little heavy-handed at times. And somehow Chris Evans still, I don't know, I know it's not pertinent to you, but he still managed to look even though he was dirty. But Tilda Swinton, I think Tilda Swinton or Swinson, anyway, I'm butchering her name over there. She was amazing as always. But yeah, it's one of those. You should see it.
Okay, good. I will. And I have a thing for Chris Pine, Captain Kirk. So I understand. Steve Trevor, I get it.
Okay.
I can appreciate a handsome guy.
Though. He's above average. That's all I'm gonna say about him.
Let's see, what have we got here? Chat Jess to say blah blah blah. Learn to read English. How to Sorcerer's Stone, Sesame Street. I never read Lucky Luke. I did read Asterisk, and I loved Asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
Asterisk. Let's see. Oh, and there's the bastard Ryan Sace.
Oh.
I am late. Hello, everyone. I'm late. I was busy writing a huge DC rebirth post for the group. That is great. I'm glad that he did that because he's read everything Rebirth, and he's been my guide for Rebirth.
It's about time he contributes. Rather than just going around and commenting wise ass thing. Yeah, Ryan. It's about
time. That's awesome. Oh yeah, or you could. Well, I think to appreciate Irredeemable, I think you need to have a solid background in comics too,
yes,
to really appreciate how remarkable that book is.
Especially Justice League,
and
especially Superman. I mean, before that book, I hated Superman. I couldn't stand him. After reading that book, I now love him, and I told that to Mark Waid himself, and he was like, you know what? You're the first person ever to tell me that. I'm like, what? Because it just shows you what it takes to be Superman. Like how having all those I think that was a thesis statement of Batman versus Superman or whatever the other movies DC's trying to shove down our throat. But the thing is, though, that's where it says, like, because he has so much power, but the fact that he can still be as good and as, as noble as he can be, it just shows that it's not easy to be Superman.
Right.
And Redeemable actually shows that to you.
That's pretty cool that you were able to say something to him that nobody had said before.
Right, because I told him, like, that it's like it shows so much, like, that it's not easy, and that's what because when he was trying to, I think he was writing Kingdom Come or about to, and that was his kind of like, he was thinking about that how easy it is for Superman to go bad, but he doesn't. So what makes him different? Because he really is a good guy. That's the statement. That's what it is. There is no power. There is no, nothing special. And I think I'm getting a little bit teary-eyed. But
seriously?
No, but it's actually making me feel all like, oh, I love Superman. But yeah, Kenny can appreciate this. My love for Superman. Rest of you.
That's sweet. And we have Gabe Infinity Watch who just joined the chat. We have, we got 45 people for you. That's a lot watching a chat.
Hello, 45 people.
Because then we get hundreds of people watching the replay. And so it's a lot for spur of the moment to get people to tune in. Right.
Yeah, we just pretty much just talked like for like an hour. Like, do you want to do this? Yes, let's do this. And then, we kind of just put it together. So yeah, it's fun to like, to see all this interaction. But hey, one question I want to ask you.
Okay.
So, top 5 comic book ever.
Oh, I didn't hear the first part of that.
Top 5 comic book.
My top 5 comic books?
Mm-hmm. At any time. Like, this is top 5 that is never gonna move. It's always going to be top 5. Well, unless you read new stuff, but it's not based on mood, based on how you're feeling.
Wow. Top 5 and it can't move, huh?
I mean, it's not.
I'll tell you, I can name 3 right now that will never move.
Go for it.
The first one is the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. I have
Okay.
that in absolute form. That was that really. I don't want to say it changed my life, but it changed the way I looked at comics
Mhm.
as a young teenager. It was remarkable. The artwork and the writing were spot on. Um, so that would be, and then another thing that changed the way I looked at comics was Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross's Marvels. I have that in, I don't know if it's titanium or absinthe or whatever. I've got it in giant size, and I'm not going to bring it out because I'll knock my Coke over and ruin my computer if I bring out another big book. Marvels would be up there. Um, let's see. What's another book that just totally changed the way I look at comics? Well, I guess it would have to be Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen,
Mm-hmm.
because those both absolutely turned my world on my head, upside down. I mean, that completely changed my world. And I will also say Silver Age Flash, because
Okay.
that was my favorite comic as a kid.
What made it stick to you?
The artwork, Carmine Infantino's artwork. I mean, I look at it now and it's full of a bunch of pseudoscience, but his artwork is so amazing that that I absolutely love it. So actually, you got, oh boy, there's Sandman, there's Irredeemable. I didn't even
That
say those.
no more, no more. You five, man, five.
Okay.
Just kidding, but
Damn
no,
it.
yeah.
What about you?
Um, Preacher.
Hmm.
It's there is, and I think we kept on bringing it back because of Preacher. I hate boys so much. Like it's like, how is someone who can do Preacher can then turn around and do that? And it's, but regardless of that, Preacher is one of that book that's kind of, it talks a lot about I think a lot about religion, a lot about like it has a good story. The characters are like, and Jesse Custer, oh, like
Mm-hmm.
one, like just similar to Superman. It's like, after everything that he gone through, he can come out the other way, the person that he is. I think it shows a lot. And it's one of those rare books that I remember everything. So I think that's one of the things that I'm kind of now adding to my what's favorite, because I kept on forgetting books, even though I really enjoyed it. So it kind of brings the point of like, so was it really good? Like, you know. So it would be Preacher, then next Planetary. We already talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's full of like, once again, it's full of like so much of historical historical events, along with like all the superhero genre. Especially there's this one issue where Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Superman of the world was actually defeated, like, or taken out by the Fantastic Four, analog for that. So that was that was a great one. Irredeemable, because irredeemable,
Mm-hmm.
enough said, because how it did. And what else? Um, Alex and Ada, I think, because it kind
Oh.
of it's very, it's one of those quiet, simple story that talks a lot about relationship, and talks a lot about not just you can't just look at it like, oh, men versus like men and women and stuff like that, but it's just a relationship in general. And then also like your independence and things like that. It's a very interesting book. And the last one was would be Day Tripper, because
Yeah, good choice.
yeah, Day Tripper is one of those things. It's like, I think I read it first in May, and since then I think I've started to become calmer after reading that, because I started kind of looking at life more as a moment than things like, it's very trippy and edgy and like, oh my god, so what you call it, full of pretentious, but it is what it is. um I personally, it's something that I think about. I like, it's one of those books that stayed with me.
Ryan Sace is saying, "Wait, you became calmer?"
Yeah. So everything now it's calm. Yeah.
Holy smoke! You're making me want to reread Planetary and Day Tripper. I may have to pull those out and read them this weekend.
The success then, because if I could inspire people to read those two books again and again.
Yeah.
The other one that's kind of like an honorable mention, since you also kind of tried to stick in like 2 others, despite me giving you 5. Trans Metropolitan. That was like a very, I don't like. Have you read it?
Yeah. I don't know the absolutes, but I have read it.
That was one of those books which was like, it had it. I don't know what's Warren Ellis's obsession with JFK and Marilyn Monroe and Jacqueline Kennedy is, but there was the bad guy in it was a JFK analog, and there was a lot of things about American culture, politics that he kind of mentions in it. Unfortunately, a lot of that still applies or applied all the time. So it was a very interesting read in that way. And Spider Jerusalem is obviously one of the really a character that will stay with you. But it talks about a lot of other things that was kind of makes you wonder about America in general. But yeah.
Gabe is suggesting that we have Planetary as a reading assignment for Omnibros. And that is a great idea. That would take, we'd probably have to give people at least a month heads up. It's not super thick, but it's thick enough that you can't just polish it off in a couple days.
No, and you want to actually take, because that was one book that I read with breaks. And because you need to digest what you read in the last issue. Because each issue, I think other than the first couple of issues where all the characters get introduced, after that, each issue is kind of standalone. And it wasn't until the last 10 when things started happening in sequence. But everything in the middle is kind of like a standalone. It gives you background. It sets you up for the finale, and it happens. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we can have that be in February. We can have that be the February reading assignment. Excellent.
Ooh, I would like to come back for that.
Okay, good. We'll have you on the show Monday, or I think it's a Monday night that we do our reading assignment books shows. So can you do Monday nights at 8?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Look at my books. Does it look like someone who has their Monday nights out? Like, yeah.
Let's see. Gabe, blah, blah, blah. Some of the sleep at night, details, blah, 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 blah. No questions for us right now. Anything else you can think of that we talked about in our prep for this? Any other books you wanted to talk about, or any current controversies that you'd like to explore within the group, or
current controversies? Ooh. I happen to be a stable genius, so. But no, I think like one of the questions that we talked about it a little bit. So how do you think, like, given that you've been collecting and reading comics for so long, longer than a lot of people in the group, I would say, that how do you think the progression of the comic industry as of now, do you think it's positive, and where do you see it go in future?
That's a good question. Yeah, there is a question here. Yeah, I had some Nova. The Nova book is just a bunch of books bound. It's a standard size binding type thing. It's actually not standard size, but yeah, I had a bunch of Nova stuff bound. Then there's somebody saying, can we get a root beer drowning of the sculptor? You ripped the sculptor apart this week.
Oh, yes. Okay.
As far as the comics industry goes, that's a good question because I don't have a good idea for what the comics business is, the business model. I from a business perspective, I don't know how healthy it really is. I would say from my end, being a reader, the comic industry to me seems healthier um, in a general way because I do see so many more women and families participating at Comic Cons, and I realize a lot of that's been brought in by movies, which I think is fine, and I understand that doesn't translate into comics. They're not selling as many comics as they were before. You know, a book that sells 30,000 comics a month now is a success, whereas 250,000 comics a month back in the 60s was the mark of success. So and it's hard for me to judge. I don't know what Marvel's business model is because they don't seem to be given a comic book enough time to find its feet before they yank the plug on it.
I think because of the success of their movies, I think they're trying to get everything to more. To be honest, I don't know. I don't know what their plan is or what they're trying to do. And there's like a way too many events. I was reading like the Deadpool, Posen and Dugan omnibus. There were like 8 events in that omnibus like time frame, and I don't know if like someone who's not into comic books and collecting cares for that, and I don't know how they're going to keep up with that. But I was mostly asking more in terms of content or more in terms of qualities. Do you think that it's kind of improved over the years?
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, as somebody that's why Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns were so powerful to me because I grew up in an era of outer space Batman and Superman Red, Superman Blue, and Lois Lane always trying to find Superman's secret identity. That was a big issue. Superman's secret identity, Lois Lane always trying to find it. And when you look back at those, that's really a pretty shallow those storylines were really pretty shallow, and now we're getting into, or we have been since Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, getting into some really deep, interesting psychological turn of events in comic books that to me, this is the golden age of comics because of so many great comics. The content, I mean, a perfect example of a comic book that I thought was going to be boring was Moonshine by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo. Ostensibly, it's about I can't remember where it is exactly. Maybe the Appalachian Mountains back in the 20s, and it was a werewolf story. And I thought, this is going to be boring, just like Astounding Wolfman, just like everything else. This is going to be boring. But wow, what a book. It took so many different twists and turns, and it was so interesting and had so many levels in it that I thought it was really remarkable. And so I think that as far as content wise, this is the healthiest it's ever been, and there's something for everybody, I think.
Yes, I would agree. I think some of the that's one of the reasons I could never get into older comics back in 90s, not 90s, pretty much late probably 80s or 90s. It's what things plots are not plots. There you can drive a truck through them, or motivation is so shallow, or stakes are so like, okay, who cares? Like, for example, like Superman's identity, like, there's like I think someone posted this picture. I don't know whether who it was, but posted a picture of like, oh, do you want to tag Clark Kent? Because, it was like a picture of Lois Lane while, like Superman had her on his end. Like, do you want to do Clark Kent? Lewis's face was like this. I mean, yeah, a lot of these things in this day and age, it's not gonna fly. It's just not. People are not gonna believe that Lois Lane is so. Am I saying it like Lois Lane is so dumb that she can't figure that out? Like, these are the things that's not gonna fly. So the fact that we're moving away from those, smaller things and moving into like more bigger things about like, talk about tragedy or talk about like, I don't know, like a lot more emotional, like stories with more emotional impact is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, well said. I agree.
And then also like having different creators, like, sorry, not only different creators from different background, but also like, so having something like Image or Vertigo or like, where creators can explore different things. Because, can you imagine having Saga back in 80s with either Marvel or DC? Like, that's never gonna work. But having Image now, it's it's just more avenues.
Right. Yeah, and it turns out that was one of the best things that could have ever happened as far as content wise is the formation of Image.
Right.
I think that's given a lot of independent places like Dark Horse and Boom and IDW the courage to hand the reins over to creators and have more interesting characters created. Let's see, here's a good question. What are your thoughts on the current Green Lantern Rebirth runs? I just read Green Lanterns, 3 volumes of it, trade paperback, and I really liked it. It was the one featuring Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, and they dealt with their cultural and personality differences really well. Simon Baz is Muslim. Jessica Cruz, I believe, is Hispanic and suffers serious anxiety disorder. And I thought it was really well done. I thought they were very interesting.
That actually kind of leads to another question I wanted to ask. It's why is Marvel gets more flack for having all the diverse characters? Let's not get into the controversy of it all, but DC doesn't. Because DC is also doing the same thing, but why don't they get more flack? Like, or any flack for that?
That's the first time anybody's ever said that to me. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. Maybe because Marvel is more in the forefront or has been considered the industry leader for so long. Mm-hmm. That's just a guess. But you're right. There are a lot of diverse characters in DC, and nobody ever accuses them of being SJWs, whereas Marvel gets it left and right. Maybe because you don't see. Well, they have. I will say Marvel has taken a lot of frontline characters and introduced alternates to them, whereas DC has not. They've kept the characters. I don't know. I guess because there's like there's Iron Man and Iron Heart, and then there's a couple of different. There's Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel. They're different. Who else am I thinking of? There's Miles Morales and Spider-Man. There's Sam Wilson as Captain America. Maybe because those characters have been changed a little bit. They do keep the original around, but I guess you don't see Wonder Woman getting a new character, or Batman. Batman gets a sidekick, but there's not necessarily a new Batman.
Right.
Maybe that has something to do with it.
And that's something that Ryan and I were talking about the other day. It's like, it's all good to have representation, and it's all good to have, different types of characters of different background and stuff. But I personally think that people take a certain like, dislike to it if it comes at the expense of the existing character.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons, like, I think, like, Hal Jordan is still there and being Hal and just being, being Marty Sue around all over the galaxy. But you have all these other characters that you can lean on and read about. Versus when you come to Captain America, Steve Rogers is gone, and it's I'm forgetting his name, Sam Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I think that's kind of rubs people the wrong way. I mean, even whether it should, no, it shouldn't, but it does. Like, it's I'm not justifying all the trolls and things like that, but
right.
It does. And I think that's the same way that went with Ghostbusters, because they were like, the lady version, the female version of Ghostbusters, is because they came at the expense of the old Ghostbusters. They were saying that, oh, this is a reboot, instead of saying that, oh, this is a sequel. And it could have been that the Kristen Wiig's character was like a little girl who saw a Ghostbuster fight in TV, and then she got inspired by that and decided to become a Ghostbuster. That would have been, I personally believe, would have been taken in a complete different way than this Ghostbuster has faced. It's a perfectly good movie, don't get me wrong, but the thing is that the people were just tore it apart. And, so I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking of the other. I'm like, oh, DC also have all these characters. Why no one's talking about anything about them?
That is a great point. I've never heard that brought up before, and that is a great point for you. And I'm patting myself on the back right now for having you on the show. It was a brilliant move on my part. Good for you.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, when it comes to comics and things, I can talk about it all day. As you know, it's been what, 1.5 hours.
Oh my gosh, have we been on 1.5 more hours? Wow.
Yes.
Well, we should probably give this about 5 more minutes, or else we're gonna both go numb. Let's see. Just gonna do. Okay, I should go back and read the Green Lantern trades. Yeah, Green Lanterns is a good book. And then the whole group chat was about what we were just talking about. And so there's a wide variety of opinions in there. So let me answer this real quick. So we should probably, we have been on for 1.5 hours, which is great. It's flown by. So let's, what's that?
No, it did, because I was just looking at the clock. I'm like, oh, it's 4:38, and then no, it's 5:38.
Yeah, and we had over 50 viewers at one point, which is great.
Right.
So any closing thoughts you'd like to say?
No, I guess one.
Do you feel we covered everything you wanted to cover?
I mean, yeah, it's just, it was all about like having a chat about comics and things like that. But one thing to say that, I'm eternally grateful for the group that we're part of, for Riley to create that. I think that's something that has to be done. Anytime you're a member of the group, you have to finish that. That's our prayer. That's what it is. And, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be an admin. And, it was really interesting. Not necessarily I learned a lot about myself, but I think the group itself had helped me figure out my taste in comics, and got me into thinking more about them, review them and things like that, and also like always like a lot of recommendations and things like that. So it has always it's always gonna have a special part in my heart.
Nicely said.
Yeah, and having to meet all these people, like I would there is no way I would ever meet the Welsh bastard if it wasn't for the group. So I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. So
well, he thinks I have a magnificent beard, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's not as glorious as Cap, but for I know a little small town Welsh guy, that's okay. It's
right. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. This has been Omni Dog's Vault with a chat with Fariha and an interview with a fangirl. This was great. We should do this more often.
Yes, and next February we can talk about planetary.
Yeah, this coming February, we'll have you back on and talk about planetary. That is an excellent idea.
Right. All right.
All righty. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And I appreciate everybody's viewership. Thank you for all to people who subscribe and to hit the like button. And love you all. Peace and love. Peace and love.